Welcome to the Hair Metal Rules Podcast, where we celebrate all things 80s hair and glam rock. Join us as we dive into the world of spandex, big hair, and killer guitar solos with your host, Big J. From iconic bands like Motley Crue and Def Leppard to the lesser-known gems of the era like Lillian Axe and Babylon AD, we cover them all. So grab your hairspray and leather pants because it's time to rock out with the Hair Metal Rules Podcast. Well, my name's Jeremy, and welcome to the Hair Metal Rules Podcast.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. I've been a big fan of yours and a big fan of Silent Rage ever since I saw an ad for Don't Touch Me There in the back of Metal Edge magazine.
Featuring Rebel with a Cause, big sticker on there.
Featuring Rebel with a Cause, yes, sir. And hopefully I'll be able to, I'll add that to my vinyl collection one day. You know, it's funny, the hair bands from that era, some of the vinyl, they fetch a hefty price these days.
Yeah, I haven't checked out ours lately, but there's a label in Australia that's topping. They were going to release our entire catalog on vinyl, and I think it's the same record label that Gilby Clark's on. Robot, Golden Robot Records or whatever.
Golden Robot.
Yeah, and then after COVID, everything was so expensive that they were like, we'll have to put this off for a little bit. So I still have some vinyl here. I have a few of them left. You know, I mean, I have a lot of other artists, but I probably have a few Silent Rage ones also.
I don't mind I don't even mind if it's a reissue. You know, I want the vinyl. I don't care if it was the very first one that come off the press and you got to have this one. It's $10 million. You got to have but as long as I have the vinyl, because vinyl just sounds fine. There's nothing like the sound of vinyl.
Well, not just the sound, but the whole everything, the album cover, the insert, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, I had about 600 vinyls still left over, and then got a divorce about 5 years ago, and strangely, a lot of my best ones disappeared. I don't know.
I've just started, you know, collecting them here in the last few years, just going in flea markets and swap meets, and you never know what you're going to thumb through and find. You'd be surprised, but most of the time when you go in a flea market or a bargain place, it's old country albums or country gospel albums, especially the South where I'm at. That's pretty much all you find, rummaging through like a Goodwill or something like that. But every now and then you'll come across something good.
I just had, 3 days ago, an old fan and friend, I'll say, from back where I used to live, said that her girlfriend was thumbing through at a used record store and came across Shattered Hearts record, and she sent me a picture of it. I'm not impressed that it was probably $2 or whatever. I don't know. No, I'm just guessing.
But that's just somebody. It's neat to come across things like that. But it's the person that knows what they have is the ones you're going to pay a whole lot of money for. But I mean that's that's the name of the game. I get it.
All seeing them vinyl for Shattered Hearts and Don't Touch Me There. I mean, I haven't looked in a while, but on eBay and stuff, and they were around $100 or something like that, $75. And yeah, it's crazy. And guess what? We don't get any of that money. So
true, because it's already it's after the fact. You don't get any of it at all. I never thought about that. Yeah, you're right. So it's not like you're ordering it from like you said, a Golden Robot that's reissuing it. You get money from that, but going to a flea market, it is what it is.
We don't even see most of the money from streaming and all those kinds of things. It sucks, but we're happy to have the music out there. You know, we don't plan on making a living from Silent Rage anymore. We all have our other bands or our other lives, and but a lot of times I have to say it's like third party people put them up, and they kind of hide the money, and it's, kind of sucks. We don't ask, it's just not really fair. But like I said, I'd rather have the music be exposed, on Spotify and Pandora and all the
Sure.
forms on, just so people can hear it. That's all we do these days, to keep, the Silent Rage name alive. Just people want to hear it. That's awesome.
Well, it's funny with Spotify. You'll see a lot of good things on Spotify, and the next thing you know, they've taken it off for some unapparent reason.
Hmm.
Some of the '80s metal bands that I've listened to on Spotify before, you go look for them now, and they're not there anymore. I don't know if it's like Netflix. We'll run this for a while, and then Hulu
Hmm.
will pick it up, and I don't know how that works, but
I don't either. No. And I should, but I don't.
so tell me, how who were some of your musical influences when you were growing up? What made you want to get into rock music per se?
Before I got into the band, before I was actually doing it, oh,
Yes,
that's
sir. Yeah.
pretty easy. I mean, initially it was bands like The Who and Led Zeppelin, and mainly, I mean, those two bands I can think of off the top of my head. But my brother, I had an older brother that passed away a few years ago, but he had a record collection, so I got to hear, great stuff. I wish I would have kept his vinyl collection. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But and then I'll never forget. Actually, I was at Mark Hawkins' house, one of the guitar players from Silent Rage, and we were listening to music, and an Alice Cooper song came on, and I'd never heard Alice Cooper before. I was obviously pretty young. I was probably 13 or 12, and like, who is this? And his brother goes, "Oh, it's Alice Cooper." I'm going, "That's a girl."
Girl.
it, I was, no, it's not a girl, stupid. And so we rode our bicycles down to a local record shop, and I picked up the whole Alice Cooper collection. That was my first love as far as that goes. And then when Kiss came along, I mean, the Kiss came along, and we were just we'd go to record stores and just look for records. And I was just looking through the record bins with my friend that had an older brother also. It was, we'd pick out stuff. And then I had heard You Got Nothing to Lose by Kiss on the radio. It was like, oh, Kiss, I want to check their record out. So I looked at the record. It was their first record. And I saw the cover, but I didn't know that was the band. I thought that was a bunch of clowns on the cover.
All right.
But I bought the record because I liked the song, and I listened to it. I still didn't know that Kiss was Kiss, but I bought tickets to the concert in 1970, early 1974. They were playing a local place out here called Santa Monica Civic, which used to be a great concert venue.
Right.
And we're opening for a band called JoJo Gunn. Do you know JoJo Gunn?
I do not.
Me neither. But that's who they were opening for. And I mean, the blood and the fire, and that was it, man. I was a total Kiss fan from that point on. And then I've got Gene Simmons posters all over my walls, and Gene
Right.
Simmons was everything. Of course, I still The Who and bands like Slade and all those kind of bands I still loved also, but they took over my life. Alice Cooper and Kiss.
Most people, when I ask that question, it's either Alice Cooper, depending on what genre of music they glam, whatever, or Kiss. 99% of them say, well, when I saw Kiss for the first time, or I listened to Kiss Alive for the first time, I, I was done. That's what did it for me. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to play rock and roll music. So
I've heard that from some of my friends also. And funny, friends that are 10 years older than me and friends that are 10 years younger than me,
wow.
So
They've had a big influence, yeah, in the whole rock and roll aspect of history. They've influenced a lot of people, that's for sure. So how did the band Silent Rage get started?
well, how old was I? I was probably 14 or 15. And I have friends like Jesse and Mark. Mark has been my friend since I was 5 years old, Mark Hawkins.
Okay.
And Damon, who we used to call Tim, he became my friend in my junior year because he was friends with Mark, because Mark went to a different high school. And we always had a couple friends' house that we just hung out and listened to music and did whatever kids do. Uh, getting high on shitty
Yeah,
weed.
sure.
And they came over and they were like, and they both had guitars, and they're like, hey, we've got a drummer and we need a bass player. You want to play bass? And I go, okay. And I didn't know how to play a lick. I just went to the record store. Actually, matter of fact, I went to a record store called Hogan's House of Music where Gilby Clarke worked. I
Okay.
don't think he was working there when I was that young, but he ended up working there. It's called Hogan's House of Music. Bought a cheap Fender Precision bass, and then Jesse started teaching me how to play riffs on the bass. The first song he ever taught me was that we were just sitting around getting stoned with a bunch of people. Not that I'm a big stoner, I'm just saying those days.
Hey, sure.
And he just he's like, play this riff, and it was like Led Zeppelin, Dazed and Confused. And I just played this over and over again. Blah, da, da. So I was just playing that over, and all of a sudden I'm playing with a band. I was going to actually, it was just such a great feeling to have the drums and the other guitars, and we didn't have any vocals back then, but it was just, I was just sold, and that's how it started with just high school friends. And we were one of the lucky bands that we kept us three together forever and ever. We're still considered together. We haven't played a show for 8 years or 10 years, but so that's the way it started. But then we came up with a name. It was called Rage when we were in high school, and we were the big high school party band. We did have a rival that was a year older than us, called Medusa, but we were backyard party circuit, we called it out here, because everybody had these huge parties, cover charge and kegs of beer, and we did the backyard party circuit, we called it. And then we got into playing Gazzarri's, which became many other venues, but Gazzarri's on the Sunset Strip as the house band in like 1980.
Yeah.
And then we started playing the Sunset Strip. So
the Sunset Strip, this is the whole premise of my talking to people and doing a podcast. The Sunset Strip fascinates me.
Let's do it.
The only exposure being on the East Coast that a Southern boy like me had to this kind of music was, like I say, Metal Edge, Rip, Circus, Hit Parade, the Headbangers Ball on Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
Or my buddy bought the new Cinderella cassette tape, and I bought the new Rat cassette tape, and you put them in your stereo, and you dubbed it and recorded it, and you exchanged Memorex cassette tapes, and that's how you got turned on to this music, and until you saw Headbangers Ball. And that's the first time, other than the ad in the magazine of you guys, that's the first time I ever really seen what you guys really look like, your mannerisms. I saw, I was sitting here before you came on, and I didn't realize you'd been in movies before. And I just looked at some of the, your discography of movies. That's cool. As long as you're doing something, that's all that matters. The Sunset Strip, my only exposure to the Sunset Strip was Decline of Western Civilization, and I just think it would be fascinating to go back in time and be able to walk the strip one time and go to all the clubs and see all these bands that I've followed since I was 15 years old. I'm 53 now. So 40 years, 50 years, 40 years I followed. I always liked the bands that were not the Motley Crues, the Poisons, the Rats. I liked the Tora Toras. I liked the Silent Rage. I liked Heaven's Edge. I liked Hurricane Alice. I liked Icon. Those are the bands that made me really fall in love with this music. I mean, you can always turn on MTV any given point of the day in the 80s and see Talk Dirty to Me, but you didn't see Don't Touch Me there very often, unless they happen to run you on the Headbangers Ball on Saturday night.
You like a lot of the bands that touched the golden ring but didn't get the gold.
stone. Said, don't worry, I won't ask much. Well, that's alright. I'm just looking for a touch. You try to give my body hell, but I'm not the kind that kiss and tell. Still, you're laying under my skin. My heart's beating faster, and I'm giving in. Don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart. Told you that right from the start. Should've played it cool, should've played it smart. Don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart. Now I've been hurt and abused, and I thought that I paid my dues. I wanted no ties to hold me down. I was running free till you came around. You, now you're getting too close. Your grip's closing in and I'm losing all hope. You said your love wouldn't stay. Now I can't keep love away. Don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart. Told you that right from the start. Should've played it cool, should've played it smart. Don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart. Think you know me well, but you're not the one that's been put through hell. You're laying under my skin. My heart's beating faster, and I'm giving in. Don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart. Told you that right from the start. Should've played it cool, should've played it smart. Don't touch me there. No, no, don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart. Told you that right from the start. Should've played it cool, oh, played it smart. Don't touch me there, 'cause that's my heart.
Yes, or Vane was one of my favorite bands from that, you know.
Mentioned we played with at one point or another. So
And that's like I say, not that the other ones didn't do their time, but they made it big, you know, yada yada yada. But I've talked to a lot of the musicians that were in the not necessarily lesser known bands, but it's like Tommy Ricard from Vane, the drummer. He said, we were touching the bubble of Motley Crue, but we never went inside the bubble of Motley Crue. We never made it to that point. But you guys work so hard. Everybody's got their different stories. But some of the guys, I mean, you didn't eat. You slept on somebody's floor. You slept wherever you could sleep. You know, you did the clubs, and you didn't have a whole lot of money, and you climbed over one back to put this flyer higher than the other guys, and you're handing out. I know it probably might be fascinating to you because you lived it, you did it, but from an outsider, I just think that's so faith and believing in yourself that you'd go through all of that.
yeah, I mean, but you didn't do it just for that. That's just what you did.
Yeah,
and
right.
Probably at the time I did take that scene for granted because that's just what was happening, but it didn't mean that it wasn't fun and exciting. And
Yeah.
we all lived in the suburbs, so we didn't, it was about a 25-minute drive to Hollywood, the Sunset Strip, from where we all lived. But so we got to have kind of a semi-normal life. In the early years, most of us lived with our parents, except for Mark Hawkins, who ran away from home when he was 16 and lived with one of our good buddies in his garage. and we all had the garage thing going on. And but the Sunset Strip, it was pretty incredible.
Tell
So,
tell me one of your favorite Sunset Strip stories. I know
boy,
you have many, many, but just
uh, ones that I can remember, that's tough because
well, yeah, maybe one you can remember.
we were
What
we
was your
were
favorite club to play in?
at the time in those days. I loved playing the Roxy. The
Roxy.
Roxy like just was an upgrade from the whiskey a go go. And I mean, the Gazzarri's got us started because we were one. They had like house bands. They would have the we'd
Mhm.
play every couple weeks or once a week at Gazzarri's. But they had 6 stages at Gazzarri's at that time, so there'd be one band here, one band there. One
Oh,
it was pretty
wow.
awesome. You know, other stories from the Sunset Strip. My girlfriend wouldn't like me to tell, probably.
Oh, I understand completely. Trust me.
Uh, let's see.
Who,
I
who
mean,
did you hang out with? Who were the other bands or musicians you hung out with more than normal?
no, honestly, in those days, a lot we were so into ourselves, trying to make it ourselves, that we didn't associate with a lot of the bands because, and like I said, we lived in the burbs. A little later on in the 80s, we hung out with all the guys that live in the South Bay. We would call it South Bay out here, which is Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, Torrance, this area down here just south of LA on the West Coast. And so there was like band members, Rat, White, Great White, uh, Dokken. Those bands would come into the local clubs when we played down in that area, and I became, friendly acquaintances
Sure.
with all three of those bands. I'm sure there was a couple others that I can't think of off the top of my head. Later on, Bullet Boys.
The Bullet
We
Boys.
come in. There was a place called the Rain Tree that was they called it the Roxy of the South Bay, and so everybody ended up playing there. But they also had cover bands in there, and so we used to try to make a living by we pay for our music career by we'd go out as another name and play covers at a lot of these venues, get paid as a different under a different name, sometimes even have another singer, and then that would support us trying to get a record deal.
Wow.
And I was the one walking up and down, literally knocking on record labels' doors with our little package, and
Really?
trying to it took us 10 years from the time we first started playing till we got the major record label deal with Gene Simmons and RCA. Prior to that, we had Shattered Hearts, if you're familiar with that record.
Oh yeah.
So, that came about. That was actually a South Bay based label that put that out, and they were distributed. Distributors were the same people that distributed Motley Crue's first record on Leather
Okay.
Records. So that's
Wow.
kind of what got our start, really, was that record and Pounding on Doors. And later on, Gene Simmons came across that record when I was looking for managers. His manager gave it to him, and that's a great story if you want to hear that story at some point.
Sure.
So
Sure. I mean, go.
go right now.
I have you for a little while. You go right ahead.
Okay. So now we're in the mid 80s, 87, 86. I think it was about 87. After Shattered Hearts had come out, it did really well for an independent record. We got a lot of press for that record that Paul Sabu produced. And we had a great lawyer who was the lawyer of Michael Jackson and Barbra Streisand at the time, like huge people. And he's like, you need to find a management company. Look at the back of your records, see bands you like, and send them your product. So we did that, and one of them, of course, Gene Simmons. I mean, Kiss's label. So sent them the management, but didn't get a lot of responses. Did get you'd get little pass letters or whatever. You get a little critique, not bad necessarily. But I was literally sitting at home. This is when I lived with my dad. And I got a phone rang, and I was sitting there with my little dog. Phone rings. Hi, do you know anything about this band, Silent Rage? I go, yeah, I'm the bass player. I'm kind of take care of the business for the band. And he's like, well, this is Gene Simmons, and I've started this record. I'm like, wait. I go, I just honestly said, fuck off, Mark, because I thought it was Mark playing a trick on me because he was
Right.
really getting people's voices. I go, fuck off. And he goes, no, 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 really. This is Gene Simmons. And he's talking about his relationship with RCA Records and this thing. And I start recognizing the voice. And I'm literally looking at Gene Simmons posters all over my wall. And I'm just going, I can't, you know, and I'm trying to be really professional. So I'm you know, yes, sir. Yeah, we started with this. We recorded with so and so, and then I'm taking the phone away from my mouth and going, shit, I can't fucking believe this. And then I'm talking to Gene, and he said, well, I really like to hear some more material. You guys are good songwriters, and that's really what's really important to me. And I was shitting my pants, and I got off the phone. In those days, there might have been phone machines, but there were no other ways to communicate.
Sure. Yes.
And I just called everybody up in the band, and nobody answered their phone. I was just sitting there stewing on this, just going, shit, I got to tell somebody, you know. My dad wasn't home. He wouldn't have cared anyways. So, but eventually, you know, one thing led to another. And you know, I got a shit ton of Gene Simmons stories, that's for sure.
So, and being that Kiss was one of your idols, I imagine being signed by Gene Simmons was even that much more thrilling, being it was one of your, you know, your musical heroes.
It was almost unbelievable, you know, for the way that it came about. And there's even a little backstory to that, because when we were before we wrote original music, I think we had one original song. I was working at a clothing store at the mall, and one of my managers heard that I liked Kiss, and he said, well, you know, my dad runs pyrotechnics for Kiss. He's a pyrotechnics director for Kiss. I was like, what? I mean, you know, I was probably 17 or 18 at that point. And he's just, I gotta, you know, and he goes, yeah, you know, he's on tour with them right now, but, you know, why don't you get some material and send it to, and so we went in the studio, recorded cassette tapes, sent them to Hank Schmel was his name. And we would send them to him, and he would say that he was letting the band listen to him when he had a chance, and I believe him. And they said, well, the first thing you got to do is start writing original material. So we had this little thing going back and forth, and I was excited as shit. And then he actually took us. Am I allowed to cuss on this show?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry about that though.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
He actually took us to. He got us backstage at a Kiss concert. I think it was 1980. It was that tour with all the glam and all that kind of stuff. And I'd never been backstage at a big concert before, and I was just unbelievable. And then we started writing material, and they were giving us notes like, you know, work on the harmony, blah, blah, blah. I think Gene and Paul allegedly were doing this. And we actually we had this shitty rehearsal studio that we built in a garage. We rented a garage in the bad part of town, and we had a rehearsal studio, and they were coming to town, and Gene and Paul were going to come see us. This is 7 years before we ever got our record contract with them, with Gene. And Gene they were coming into town, and we had an appointment. They were coming at the thing. We cleaned up the place as best we could. We rehearsed, and then that happened to be at the same time period. Paul's wife or girlfriend that was involved in a fire. I don't think she was burned or anything, but it was a big deal, so they canceled. We were devastated, and we kept that relationship for a little bit, but it never turned into anything until years later. 5 years later, I'm not sure what it was. It's probably about 5 or 6 years later when Gene contacted me. So it just about, and then all of a sudden I'm with my, you know, my God of Thunder. It was really an amazing experience. And Jesse and myself were huge Kiss fans. Mark Hawkins was not a huge Kiss fan, but he wasn't going to turn down an opportunity, you know. So
no, then no way you would turn something down like that. No,
that's right.
House of Lords was on the same label, correct?
Yes.
Was there any other? I was sitting here trying to think. I know you guys in House of Lords. I couldn't think of any other.
Think there's a band called Wanted. I don't know if their record got released or not. They were a Canadian band.
Okay.
Out Lords came out first.
Yes.
What happens that I later gradually, well, I became friends. I mean, all the guys in the band were pretty friendly with us because a lot of them lived out here in Southern California, except for
Mhm.
Jafria, I think. He might have lived out here, but he wasn't in the same group of friends. So I became Chuck Wright, the bass player, who went on to work with Quiet Riot and everybody else. He became a friend of mine, and the guitar player, Cordoba. Can't remember his first name. I'm sorry, but
Lanny Cordova.
Lanny. So
Yeah.
we were friends. We just could we all hung out at the same clubs, not in Hollywood, but in Orange County because they were Orange County based. So Orange County is another a little further south than Los Angeles. So I was friends with both those guys. Their record came out. They were the first release, and it was a great record. I thought.
Yes.
Matter of fact, we went to their first video shoot. I don't know the name of which song they released. Probably that cover. Can't find my way home. I mean,
Can't
it's one
find
of
my
those.
way home. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
congratulate yourself on that one.
Pat yourself on the back. Good job.
And I actually ended up meeting one of the girls that was in the video, and ended up dating her for a little bit.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and but I'm still friends with Chuck to this day. He lives a couple miles from me, and so it's kind of a cool relationship that he's we've all been through a lot, and we're all still just plugging along.
Well, that's it's. I think it's great that you guys are still you still talk to each other. You still have friends from back in the day because a lot some of the people I talked to that weren't huge bands they give me the opportunity to talk to them, and it seems like I'm more interested in the conversation, and they'll tell you right straight up, dude, I hadn't picked up a guitar in 30 years. When that was over with, I started laying concrete. I got my own cement business. I mean, that's great. Hey, good for you.
I mean, it's tough because to keep doing it, you have to sacrifice. I mean, you have to sacrifice money and possibly girlfriends, here and there where you lose because you're involved and you don't have a lot of dough.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough. I'll call them supportive parents. I mean, yeah, they were supportive. My dad was a cop, but still, he paid for my first bass and my first amp. And matter of fact, his favorite thing to say whenever Mark would come over is Mark and Jesse would come over. He goes, "I should have just bashed that guitar over your head before he came over here with all his loud music." But we rehearsed at my house and everything, so they were supportive. But I did have something to fall back on when things got really rough. So I was blessed.
Right.
Jesse the same way. Mark was always been on his own. So, but he toughed it out for a long time. But he pretty much gave up. He went straight. We call it.
Mhm.
Number of years ago, like after we lost our record deal, but we're still in contact. We still jam together. We've done what 2 records since Don't Touch Me There.
Right.
And, but Jesse, he's kept going, but he always had a really good job working for the movie studios. So me, I just did whatever. I did whatever I could, and I tried to just play music. I never, since I was 15 years old, I've never not been in at least one band. There's never even been a lapse where I wasn't in a band. So that's just kept me going. And like I said, it helped that I had parents, of course I had to make money on my own. In the 90s, when we lost our record deal, I had to diversify, and that's when I started in the acting thing, and
Right.
it actually paid the bills and stuff. And so, but the band, me and Mark were playing in a shit band, just playing shit bars for $100 a piece a night, playing 5 sets a night just to keep playing music. In the
Yeah.
90s were rough.
The whole 80s era, and it came to a crashing halt
Oh yeah.
at the end of the 90s. But there were still good bands that were on into 90, 91, 92.
Yeah.
But they kind of get swept away because you're listening, not me personally, but Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and they kind of get snuffed out. But there's a lot of people don't realize how many bands came about in 90, 91, 92, even up to 93 that would have been huge in 1986 if it would have came out then. But people like Heavy Bones, It was a band called Saints and Sinners.
Yeah.
They were from Canada. They had I can't think. Well, Gary Hoey was in Heavy Bones with Joel Ellison. That was in a band called Cats and Boots. But anyway, they came out later, and people don't even know who they are.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
we were the unfortunate thing happened to us is our record came out in 1989. It was recorded in 88, came out in 89.
right?
And we thought we were on top of the world, did our first video with Rebel with the Cause in 89. And Gene Simmons was also managing us along
Yeah,
with being RCA Records. And then uh, we toured with Black Sabbath in 89. And we thought it was great, but that was when Ozzy wasn't singing with them. There was a big feud with Tony and him, Tony Iommi.
yes,
And so the tour just got worse and worse as we were traveling along. And it was supposed to be a 6-month tour. It ended up being a 3-month tour. We got back from that tour, and they were Rebel with the Cause was doing, being played on MTV. We were just getting ready to go in for our second video at A&M Studios with for Running on Love, which is the opening track on Don't
yes.
Touch Me. And we were sad. We were just in rehearsals, and the day before we were supposed to go in, we got a phone call from Gene, and he said, "RCA is dropping you guys." And oh no, I take that back. I'm sorry. No, we got a call said they want you to start recording a new record. And we were like, we took us a year to record that last one, write the songs and record for it.
Yeah.
And he's like, they say it's dead in the water, and Guns N' Roses it started hitting,
Yes.
and they didn't want to promote that record anymore, which we were devastated. But we were like, okay, so this is probably 90, right around there.
Mhm.
And Gene got Bob Ezrin producing, and we had a huge record budget, like $300,000, which is, you could buy a house, 10 houses back then for those days.
Right.
And so we were like, okay. So we started working with Bob Ezrin and Kevin Beamish producing. So we're like, okay, we got this going. And in the middle of recording, we'd only recorded 3 songs, completed 3 songs. And then we got this call from Gene saying, RCA is dropping you from the record label because your label is an 80s band, Nirvana's in, and anything related to hair and that kind of stuff is out. And at the time I was thinking, well, Gene's going to promote, he'll get us another deal, blah, blah, blah. He told us that they dropped 70 bands from their record label, 70 at the same time. Got,
Wow.
all new people in there. And so, but it turned out Gene, eventually just said, I can't do anything for you guys anymore, and I was pretty devastated, let's just say.
Sure. Well,
Uh,
I can't imagine what, that's your life. That's your bread and butter and everything. Next thing you know, where do you go from here? I mean, okay, well, we're dropped. What's next? And most of the time there was nothing next for pretty much, a bigger name, had a bunch of albums under their belts, bigger record label. But the 80s was the best decade of music.
it was definitely fun, and it was just a different era. You can't at the time I hated Nirvana and I hated Pearl Jam just because of they kind of just destroyed our scene. And and I was like, oh, we were singing about fun stuff and girls and
Right.
songs and meaningful lyrics, especially when it came to do with love and stuff like that. But
Sure.
and then they came in and suicide and all these things. And I was just like, but of course, after a while, I learned to appreciate it later in the '90s, in the late '90s. I was like, well, I have to say it's pretty good music, but it's not what we were doing. It'll never be like that. It'll never be the same and it still kind of hasn't really been.
Because 80, it was all about, it was about fun. It was about girls. It was about sex. It was about, a lot of it was about just utter debauchery. Whatever the kind of band it was is what they sang about. But Don't Touch Me There, I like the whole album. You back when you had to buy a cassette tape, that $7.99 you spent when you were 16 years old, you only really knew one song off of it. But I got it and listened to it, and I like the whole thing. My favorite song on the whole thing, believe it or not, is "Can't Get Her Out of My Head."
Oh, I love our rendition of that.
Midnight on the water, I saw the ocean's daughter riding on a wave she came, staring as she called my name, and I can't get her out of my head. No, I can't get her out of my head. Now my old world is gone for dead, and I can't get her out of my head. No, no. Break down on the shoreline, lost love in a high tide. Morning, don't come here tonight, searching for a ray of light, and I can't get her out of my head. No, I can't get her out of my head. Now my old world is gone for dead, and I can't get her out of my head. Out of my head. Bank job in the city. Robin Hood and William Tell and Ivanhoe and Lancelot, they don't envy me. Wait until the sun goes down, in trains my world keeps going round, and I can't get her out of my head. No, I can't get her out of my head. Now my old world is gone for dead, and I can't get her out of my head. No, no. Can't get her out of my head. No, no, no. Out of my head. Can't get her out of my head. No, 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 no.
That is just, it is. I let my wife listen to it one time. I said, "You ever heard this song before?" She's like, "It sounds familiar." I said, "Well, that's a remake." I said, "But this one's 100 times better than the original."
Not going to touch that answer, but
I
yeah,
think, in my opinion,
we totally 80ized it, because we really
Yeah.
modernized it to that time period, like kind of a White Snake-ish
Right.
kind of version. But I think I had a lot to do with the arrangement, but just because I had that driving bass part, there was like a
Uh-huh.
bum, bum. But Jesse is the musical genius, so everybody always contributed. But that song, I mean, I love that song too. I love our ballads more than anything else. I don't know why. They're the ones that I will actually be vain and listen to. I just like the
Right.
ballad.
But
But
your sound, there were other bands that had kind of sound like you guys had. It was just the production was great on the album. A lot of those bands, it sounded like I recorded it over here in my closet back here. But I mean, they got what they could get. You
Yeah.
know, they were just happy to put out an album, but a lot of them had just great production, and the sound was crisp, and that's
Well, we got
what made it so good.
Paul Sabu produced our first record, Shattered Hearts, and so he was used to working on no budget. And actually, I met Paul Sabu doing the movie that I did that got me in this that way back then called Hard Rock Zombies, which is a
Hard Rock Zombies.
cult hit. It's
Right.
horror movie, but anyways, I met him. He was the musical director for that movie, and then afterwards, he's like, "Oh, he could play music." Got a thing with him. He started recording us, just like on a low budget. And then when Gene Simmons signed us, Gene was executive producer, and we checked out a lot of other producers, including like John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin wanted to produce, and I think Robin Zander from Cheap Trick wanted to produce, or
Wow.
no, Rick, one of those guys. But we came back. I don't know if it was a money thing or a scheduling thing, but he's like, I what about getting Paul back in on the thing, Paul Sabu? And we were just like, sure. So I thought came up with great production because we didn't have a very huge, very big budget for that record. Gene Simmons was our
Yeah.
our guy. Pretty stiff on money. No offense to Gene, because I still love him to this day. But
Businessman.
yeah, no, he's a businessman. So we got lucky on the production, but I think, especially considering it's the era, there are certain things that are just standard for that time period. But I think he did a great job in production.
Yeah, like I say, it's one of my favorite. I have my what I call my used to call my dorm room. Now I call it my podcast room. My podcast is nothing that's going to get a Emmy or an Academy Award or anything like that. I enjoy doing this because I never in a million years would have thought I would actually be talking to you. Do you understand? I feel more like a giddy schoolgirl when someone will actually agree to do a podcast with me, and I just
You were
talking, just talking the '80s and what it was like, and the music they produced, and it means a lot. Like I say, I'm never going to be one of these guys that have 10 million people listen to every one of their episodes they put out, but I'm having a good time doing it, and I enjoy meeting people and talking to somebody, like I say, that I never imagined talking to. It's great.
well, my pleasure. And you were persistent, and it's not because I didn't want to. It's just like I just juggling plates here, making a living, still playing music. Just finding the time. I mean, I live on my own, pay for my own bills, and all that kind of stuff, as we all are now as adults.
Sure.
But it's great because I mean, how often do I get to have these conversations? I do probably one of the maybe two or three of these a year, and especially, and a lot of them come from another angle. They come a lot. I have a lot of horror movie fans that
Right.
are involved in rock also, so we get that I get that crossover, and I still, that Hard Rock Zombies came out in like 1984 or something, and I still do 2 interviews a year about that stupid movie. So,
Hey, just like you said, it has a cult following. People love it.
but I always get to talk about that time period, the 80s during that. So and my girlfriend's sick of hearing it, probably, even though she loves 80s rock, and she's a couple generations younger than me, or at least one generation. But she loves 80s rock. But after a while, I can only tell the story so many times.
Right.
Someone asks me a question like you're doing, and it kind of puts me off on a tangent. Normally I'm pretty quiet, but see, when I start talking, blah blah blah.
Well, that's good because I have talked to people before, and it doesn't make them a bad person, but you struggle trying to carry on a conversation, but they're just to themselves kind of people, and they really don't do this kind of thing much. The first podcast I ever did was just me, and I've mumbled over my words so much I actually had to type it out and read it slowly. And that's what my first podcast was, just talking about how I started listening to this music and just stories from my teenage years. But the more you do it, you get a little bit better, communicating with people and not being so scared. Because I usually log on here about 8 minutes before the other person logs, and I'm sitting here, biting fingernails. What am I going to say? Have I got everything wrote down? Make sure you follow what you're saying here. Don't, But anyway, it's fun. What keeps you busy these days? I know on Instagram I see you ride motorcycles a lot, right?
As far as hobby goes, that's my hobby. I mean,
That's your hobby.
I love it. It changed. I started riding on the street. I rode motocross when I was a kid. I mean, when I was really young, motocross and desert racing when I was really young, like between the ages of 10 and 12 or 13. But I hadn't ridden on the street, and I started riding on the street in 1998 and got a bike. And I had a friend that rode. He's like, I'll show you the ropes. And I started meeting the best people I've ever met in my life on road trips. That's where I met. I mean, that's where I became friends with Gilby Clark, is
Okay.
from him on a motorcycle ride. And there's a guy named Clito Escobedo. He's the band leader on the Jimmy Kimmel Live show. And
Okay.
I met Russ McKinnon, who at the time, he used to be the drummer for Power of Tower, and then he at the time he was the drummer for Barry Manilow for like 15 years. But he was just another musician, and I'm making all these contacts. But these are great. These are people that have really good hearts. I mean, some people are dicks. I don't have those people in my life, and these people are just great. I've just met some of the most talented. Tammy Down from Faster Pussycats. I mean, I knew him from the day. I met him here and there at the Cat
Yeah.
Club, but now I see him. I just saw him on Sunday. We rode to his show. He played at the Whiskey a Go Go, and the weekend before he rode with us. We went on a long ride with a group. So that's my hobby. It just was a life changer for me. It's something I take time out to do. I don't have a lot of time, and I take time out to do that. Just like I said, it's a great way to keep your friends together too, because you have an excuse to go hang out with your boys, and we bring our girls sometimes too. But it's like
Right.
you have an excuse to say we're going to get together,
Right.
and you don't have that,
Yeah.
except to go, maybe meet at a bar every once in a while or something, go for dinner. But so I met the great. I just love people I hang out with and ride with. So that's my hobby thing. As far as other things, busy, I've been, let's see. I mean, in early 2000s, Silent Rage kind of had a resurgence when we came out with the Still Alive record. If you haven't listened to that one, that's actually one of my favorites. And we have 3 songs on there that were produced by Bob Ezrin and Kevin Beamish. So that came out. We kind of all of a sudden we're playing again. We did some stuff in Europe. We played a few shows out here. We did Rocklahoma, those kinds of things for a few years. And then through doing that, I started playing with, God, who did I start playing with first? I started playing with Gilby. Like he needed a bass player. It's like, he'd see me play. So I'm playing with Gilby Clark, former Guns N' Roses for your listeners who might not know him. But I started out as just subbing for his bass player. And that was in 2007. So that's how many years ago. And now I've been like, I'm his #1 guy, and he uses Sean McNabb when I'm not available. He's used Chuck Wright. He uses a lot of other people, but I'm kind of #1. I'm not saying I'm the best bass player, because I am not, but I get to, I'm, there for him. I love his music, and it's fun to play and that kind of stuff. And 2009, a friend of mine, Troy Patrick Farrell, was playing with White Lion, with Mike Tramp's White Lion, and then they needed a bass player. So I went around the world with White Lion and joined that band, and that was a great experience. I learned all their music, and it was the biggest crowd I ever played for. We did a soccer stadium as a headliner, and we played to 46,000 people.
Wow.
And the next show we had 25,000. So it was just good. And then when we got back, Gilby needed a drummer. So then Troy Patrick Farrell, I got him into Gilby Clark band. So then we have this relationship. And then I've also played with something that Troy threw together, a band called Lost Angels, which is depending on the lineup, it's Ryan Roxy from Alice Cooper,
Right.
Eric Dover, who used to play in Alice Cooper and Jellyfish and a bunch of other bands. And and Slash, sang on the first Slash record, Eric Dover, and then John Corabi, who did the Motley Crue record, one of my favorite records,
Yeah.
and then Troy on drums and me on bass. So I've got to travel a lot with those guys. And that was one of a great experience too, because they're all just such great musicians that I just looked up to them, and then I'm all of a sudden on stage with these guys, and it was pretty freaking cool. So, and then I've got, just to go completely make a left turn from there, I've got a No Doubt tribute act that I threw together 20 years ago. And that's my moneymaker. I always go back. It's a blast. It's a different kind of music, different kind of bass playing, different kind of thing. But, we play 50 shows a year with that band, and I have a sub. So when I go out with my rock bands, that's my heart, is the rock and roll scene. I have someone that fills in for me, and so that's why I can play music. I mean, for a living, basically. Also, what's kept me paying the bills is my acting skills, which I really don't have many, but I work for Universal Studios as an entertainer. I've been there for 28 years, and it's great because I can take up to 6 months off and be on tour, still come back and have a gig. It's a union job, so it pays pretty well.
Right.
So that's
you're a busy man.
I'm juggling plates.
That's great. And while you're not doing all this, you can get on do you have a Harley or do you have an Indian? What do you have?
I have 4 Harleys.
Yeah, 4 Harleys. So when you're not playing music, you can get on your Harley and get together with your buddies and go ride and do something else you enjoy doing. And the way life is nowadays and the world we live in, if you don't have something to get away from the realities of everyday life, you'll go crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel, I've had a lot of tragedies in my life, but I feel blessed that I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, I've got my girl that I love, and assuming she loves me, and friends. Most of my family's passed away. Pretty much all my family, except for I have an adult son that lives in Vegas. But so my friends are my life, and I'm so blessed. I still talk with Jesse from Silent Rage. He's got a band called Electric Caravan. It's just a blues band that he goes out and does fun shows with guys I've known since I was 15.
Wow.
And I just got the word that Mark Hawkins is going to start playing with them. So I'm going to do my best to see them play this Friday. They're playing in Redondo Beach. So I'm going to try and get down there, and maybe I'll be lucky enough they'll ask me to come up and jam on some song that I haven't played in 20 years. So
that's what I was going to say. Maybe they can sneak you in on a couple of songs. It'll be a mini Silent Rage reunion.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I know you're probably wrapping it up, but in 2000 we needed a drummer because Brian Fox had retired, and so Rodney Pino, who played on the record we did with Gilby Clarke as a producer, it's called 4 Letter Word. But when we got our record deal back in 2000 for the Still Alive record, we needed a drummer, so I hired Rodney Pino, who just was recommended by a friend, and so I'm still playing with him. He actually plays in the No Doubt tribute that I play in, and also so I'm going to try and get him to go out there too, and maybe we could put together a Silent Rage song, for this thing. Jesse.
Yeah, pick a good one and play it. Fool them all and play something that people wouldn't expect you to play from Silent Rage.
Well, most people probably don't even remember Silent Rage song, but I assume some of his fans would. Here's honestly what probably would do, even though it's played out, is Rebel with a Cause, or the title track, Don't Touch Me There. We have and it's kind of easy. Well, the thing about Lost Angels, taking a step back, is when we were out with Lost Angels, we all, as a great concept, we would play the songs from the bands that we were in, or the bands we wrote for, the bands we performed for. So They actually, Silent Rage, Rebel with a Cause. We did White Lion songs. We did Alice Cooper songs. So, and we did jellyfish songs. That's what made it so great. Yeah.
Well, that'd be a
Oh,
fun concert.
say again?
That'd be a fun concert because people are hearing something that they don't expect to hear. You're hearing a plethora of bands and a plethora of music all in one spot. You
Yeah.
know.
It's a fun band. I think we're going to do it again as soon as we can get our schedules together.
Well, sir, I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Like I've been a fan for a long time, and I'll continue to be a Silent Rage fan. And
I really appreciate that.
you know,
That's my band. That's my heart. I mean, that's my roots are that band. I mean, and we still have love for it. All of us love that band. I mean, we're just, we're still friends, and like I said, friends since 5 years old, since 15 years old. It's pretty
right.
cool. I'll just put a plug. It's not even a plug, but go ahead and follow me on Instagram, EJ Curse, and Facebook on EJ Curse. I don't post a lot, but I do post stuff. I've got some shows. I'm going with Gilby Clark to Columbia next week. We've got some arena shows, and then I have a lot of stuff lined up with Gilby right now also.
Well, good luck to you, sir, and I hope the road takes you far and the music takes you further.
Okay. Well, likewise, and it's thank you for being respectful and liking the music. So feel free to edit whatever you want out of this, because I probably rambled on way too much.
But thank you so much, sir, and God bless you, and I appreciate your time.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care, sir. Bye bye.